also repeating this process in the case of Iraq, a regime with which they had very intimate military and economic relations, and we know that several important French and Russian politicians were bought during the course of the Oil for Food program, in which the UN program designed for the alleviation of the suffering of the Iraqi people was turned into something between a bordello and a bourse. And 18 palaces were built, one in every province of Iraq, on the proceeds. The Oil for Palaces program was, as we know it, while the people were made to eat garbage and drink ditchwater. This is what came of the reliance upon the authority of the United Nations. It seems to me to act in the spirit and the letter of that organization is to say, no, it is enough. We must move Iraq into the post-Saddam era. Now, I converge my two hemispheres, if you like, for their sake and for ours. We have the right to call for an end to a regime of invasion, of genocide, of the sponsorship of terror, and of the flouting of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. We have the right to say that regime is a danger to ourselves, and we have a duty to the people of Iraq. As it happens, I was there, I saw it with my own eyes, I won't hear anyone tell me it did not occur. The invading forces were greeted all the length and breadth of the country for days on end with demonstrations of unfakeable joy. I'll never forget seeing it. I will never let anyone tell me I didn't see it either. But that's, if you like, only an extra. They could all have stayed home and just said, well, we'll await developments. Legally and morally, it comes to the same thing. Legally and morally, I don't think it does come to the same thing, that 3 years ago, Saddam Hussein, a leading member of the Fascist International, a man whose party ideology was based in part on National Socialism and in part on emulation of Stalinism, who had concentrated the entire resources of a country into his own hands and those of his family. Everything in the country, including its people, was privately held by him. That this man is gone and in jail where he deserves to be, and on trial where he should have been a long time ago. And instead we have elected, as the president of Iraq, Jalal Talabani, whose people 10 years ago were being subject to genocide, and whose party, the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, is the corresponding party in Iraq of the Socialist International. In other words, of the International of Parties of Social Democracy, from the British Labour Party, the French Socialist Party. I don't think that that's too bad, frankly. There's nothing, people keep looking at me, sometimes asking me questions as if I owe them an explanation for why Iraqis have elected President Talabani instead of being forced to sign in their own blood a confirmation of a psychopathic dictator. Right? It doesn't seem to me I'm the one who owes the explanation here. Now, I don't know how far I've trespassed on my time, but am I getting close?
You have 5 more minutes.
Okay, well, that's great. I shan't need all 5. I had thought of calling my talk in a sort of neo-Hegelian way, The Cunning of History, Maureen Dowd, and the Pottery Barn. But I decided that would be too flippant a way in which to begin. I don't know how many of you followed the writings of the great philosopher Maureen Dowd, but she at one point came up with a phrase which I think has been echoed since by Colin Powell, or maybe she got it from him or he from her, I can't be certain. But you know what the Pottery Barn motto is. Probably, yeah, it may have been the other way around. You know what the motto is of the Pottery Barn: you break it, you own it. And I remember thinking at first that was a flippant thing for Maureen Dowd to say about Iraq and the United States. But then I thought, as a matter of fact, there's a good deal of truth in that. In that, Iraq was already broken. I've mentioned some of the reasons why that was so. And we already owned it. If there's to be an inquest into what's gone wrong and what's gone right in Iraq, and I think that there ought to be, and I'm more than willing to take part in it, and have so far not refused or declined any challenge to do so, if there is to be this inquest, then it cannot start 3 years ago, not for anyone with any sense at all of history or for geopolitics. The very latest, I believe, or do I mean the very earliest it could begin? The very latest, really, would be 1969, when 68, 69, when, according to many boastful accounts by our Central Intelligence Agency, we were successful in installing the anti-communist wing of the Iraqi, the most anti-communist wing of the Iraqi Ba'ath Party, the wing that had Saddam Hussein as its chief police enforcer in power in Baghdad. That seems to me to give us quite a lot of responsibility right there and then. if only that were all. But the great Baptist human rights campaigner and moralist Jimmy Carter, 10 years after that, gave, as we know, explicit permission to Saddam Hussein to invade Iran, and gave him also, a phrase that's become familiar to us recently, false intelligence to the effect that a quick strike against Iran would demolish the regime of Ayatollah Khomeini, release the American hostages, re-elect Jimmy Carter, other wonderful consequences that could be imagined. And we know what the outcome of that was. I dwelt on it a little. One of the most horrifying wars of modern times, human wave assaults using children, mutual bombardment of civilian targets, the unleashing of chemical and biological weapons, perhaps 1.5 million dead, for nothing. Through the entire course of that war, the succeeding Reagan administration was the armorer, a trainer, and diplomatic protector